The Ethelgard sanctum was a void given form, a chamber carved from the heart of a singularity, its walls of polished obsidian reflecting not light, but the crushing weight of galactic history. At its center, a colossal, three-dimensional star chart bloomed, a living nebula of captured starlight and quantum-entangled particles that depicted the concordium of sovereign systems in all its ancient, sprawling glory. Floating on gravitic thrones in a silent, concentric circle around this map were the High Counselors, beings of staggering diversity and antiquity. They were not individuals so much as the living embodiments of their species, philosophies, fears, and ambitions. And today, they were united by a single, terrifying emotion: uncertainty. High Counselor Xylos of the Cathar, his crystalline form a latticework of slowly pulsing inner light, observed the holomap with a stillness that belied the resonant tremor in his core consciousness. The Cathar were a people of logic, of geological timeframes and unwavering stability. They did not feel panic. They experienced profound systemic dissonance. And the cause of that dissonance was a series of violent, angry scars that had recently appeared on the pristine tapestry of their galaxy. They were not true wounds, not in the physical sense. They were something far more insidious: echoes, space-time contortions, violent ripples in the fundamental fabric of reality that lingered long after their cause had vanished. The Concordium's own method of faster-than-light travel, the harmonic drive, was a thing of grace and elegance. It hummed along the natural ley lines of the cosmos, weaving between stars like a shuttle through a loom, leaving no trace but the faintest whisper of displaced chronotons. It was safe, it was predictable, it was civilized. This new phenomenon was none of those things. This was a shriek in the dark. It was the signature of a technology that did not persuade spacetime to yield but bludgeoned it into submission. And it originated from a single, unassuming yellow star in an uncharted arm of the galaxy, a system the Concordium had designated Sol, the home of the species known as humanity. The evidence is irrefutable, Xylos projected, his thoughts resonating through the chamber's psychoconductive medium, each word a perfectly formed crystal of pure information. The Sol system's inhabitants have achieved faster-than-light travel. They have done so without consultation, without guidance, and with a methodology that can only be described as catastrophically reckless. He gestured with a multifaceted limb, and the holographic map zoomed in on one of the scars. The starlight around it seemed to curdle, twisting into an ugly, unstable knot. Our deepest sensor arrays indicate that each activation of this drive creates a localized reality shear. The universe does not bend. It is torn, and while the tear seals itself, it leaves behind this residue, a weakness, a stress fracture in the continuum that will take millennia to heal if it heals at all. A harsh, chitinous rasp echoed from across the chamber. It was Warlord Grauk of the Vexian Ascendancy, a hulking insectoid whose species had forged an empire through conquest and relentless expansion. His multifaceted eyes, burning with embers of suspicion, were fixed on the scar. "Heals, you speak of healing, Counselor. I see a wound, a festering wound inflicted upon the body of the galaxy. This is not the signature of a transportation device. It is the signature of a weapon. A weapon that attacks existence itself." He slammed a clawed hand against his throne's control panel, his voice a guttural snarl that grated against the sanctum's serene atmosphere. "These humans are a nascent plague. They have been broadcasting their primitive chemical signals for less than 2 of their centuries, a mere blink. And in that time they have already developed the means to poison the very fabric of space. We must act. A quarantine is not enough. We must excise the infection before it spreads." The air grew heavy with unspoken agreement from several other counselors, their forms shifting in agitated assent. The Vexian argument was simple, brutal, and compelling. A threat that could destabilize reality was a threat to all. Before the war murmurs could coalesce into a formal proposal, a soft, ethereal chime filled the chamber. It emanated from the throne of Emissary Lyra, a being of pure, contained energy, whose form was a swirling, graceful column of pearlescent light. The Luminians were philosophers and diplomats, their perspective spanning eons, their wisdom a counterweight to Vexian aggression. "Warlord Grauk speaks of poison." Her thoughts flowed, cool and calming, a gentle river against the Vexian's fire. "But one species' poison can be another's medicine. We have observed these humans. Their broadcasts, though chaotic, speak of a species wrestling with immense contradictions. They create art of sublime beauty and weapons of unspeakable horror. They dream of unity while waging endless wars against themselves. They are a paradox, a species of profound duality." She directed the Council's attention to another part of the map, to the Sol system itself. "We do not know the intent behind this technology. Is it born of malice or of desperation? of ignorance or of a different understanding of physics we have yet to comprehend. To strike them down without understanding is to act as a blunt instrument, not as the custodians of galactic wisdom. We must not be driven by fear of the unknown. Gralk scoffed, a chittering, dismissive sound. Wisdom? Wisdom is recognizing a wildfire and extinguishing it before it consumes the forest. Their intent is irrelevant. The effect is all that matters. Each time they activate this drive, they weaken the cage that holds back chaos. We all know the legends, the old texts that speak of the unraveling of the time before the Concordium, when reality was fluid and nightmares bled through the cracks. This human technology echoes those warnings. It is a key turning in a lock we have spent 1,000,000 years trying to forget. The chamber fell into a deep, profound silence, the weight of Gralk's words settling over them. The legends of the unraveling were not mere stories. They were encoded into the genetic memory of the oldest species, a race memory of a time when the laws of physics were not yet settled, when stars winked out of existence for no reason and entire worlds were erased by whispers from beyond. The Concordium had been formed to prevent such a time from ever returning, to impose order and stability on a fundamentally chaotic universe. The human drive felt like a deliberate act of sabotage against that sacred mission. Xylos considered the arguments. The Cathar abhorred chaos, but they also abhorred incomplete data. To act on Gralk's fear would be a betrayal of their own principles. To follow Lyra's path of inaction felt equally irresponsible. He focused his crystalline mind, projecting his thoughts with renewed authority. Warlord Gralk's concerns are valid. The integrity of the continuum is our highest priority. Emissary Lyra's call for caution is also wise. To condemn a species without a hearing is the act of a tyrant, not a council. He paused, letting the two opposing factions absorb his balanced assessment. Therefore, I propose a middle path. We will dispatch a fleet to the Sol system, a diplomatic fleet but one of overwhelming strength. It will not be a declaration of war, but a demonstration of consequence. We will establish a cordon, prevent any further use of this torsion drive, and we will demand an explanation. We will show them the damage they are causing. We will offer them access to our harmonic technology in exchange for the complete and permanent cessation of their own. The proposal was a masterpiece of Cathar logic, a synthesis of opposing views. It offered the Vexians the show of force they craved, while giving the Luminians the chance for dialogue they sought. It was an ultimatum wrapped in the language of diplomacy. For a long moment the council was still, each member weighing the implications. Gralk's mandibles clicked in grudging acceptance. It was not the immediate annihilation he desired, but a fleet at their doorstep was the next best thing. Lyra's light pulsed in a slow, steady rhythm, signaling her reluctant agreement. It was aggressive, but it was not an attack. And so the decision was made. A vast armada, drawn from the grand fleets of a dozen species, would be assembled. It would be the most powerful force to enter a single star system in 10,000 years. Its purpose was not conquest, but to deliver a message that would be received with either compliance or annihilation. As the counselors began to issue their silent communiques to their respective home worlds, Xylos kept his attention on the holographic scar. He felt a deep, resonant disquiet. They were assuming the humans were ignorant children playing with cosmic fire. But there was another possibility, one far more disturbing. What if they knew exactly what they were doing? Just as the session was about to conclude, a new alert chimed through the sanctum. It was a soft, urgent tone reserved for events of the highest priority. On the grand star chart, a fresh wound appeared. It was not on the periphery, in the empty spaces between arms where the humans had been testing their drive. This one was different. It had bloomed less than a light year from the Concordium's primary trade nexus, a hub of interstellar activity. It was a deliberate, precise, and audacious move. And then a second alert followed, this one from the long-range communications array. It was a signal broadcast on all Concordium frequencies, originating from the exact coordinates of the new spacetime tier. It was not a chaotic burst of noise. It was a message. It was clean, elegant, and impossibly, it was in perfect, unaccented high Concordium dialect, a language of immense complexity that took most species centuries to master. The message contained only a single, calm, and resonant statement. It was not a plea. It was not a threat. It was an invitation. Concordium High Council, the voice said, a voice that was neither male nor female but held a strange and compelling gravitas. We are humanity. We have been expecting you. We understand your concern. Please come. We have much to discuss. The silence in the Ethelgard sanctum was no longer one of contemplation. It was the silence of absolute soul-shaking shock. They had not been discovered. They had been summoned. The children playing with fire had just invited the forest fire to their home for a conversation. And for the first time in his long existence, Xylos, the embodiment of Cathar logic and stability, felt the cold, unfamiliar touch of genuine fear. The game had changed before it had even begun. The Concordium diplomatic armada was a sight designed to inspire awe and submission in equal measure. A fleet of colossal vessels, each a masterpiece of engineering and a testament to the might of its creators, moved through the void with silent, inexorable grace. There were the jagged, crystalline dreadnoughts of the Cathar, their hulls shimmering with contained energy. There were the organic, biosilicate cruisers of the Vexian ascendancy, pulsating with a malevolent, predatory life. And there were the Luminian ships of woven light and solidified thought, ethereal and beautiful, yet possessing unimaginable power. This was not a fleet. It was a statement, a physical manifestation of 1,000,000 years of galactic dominance. As it translated from the harmonic streams into the outer reaches of the Sol system, its collective energy signature dwarfed the output of the system's yellow star. They had arrived, and the silence from the inner planets was, to Warlord Grauk, a satisfying sign of terror. High Counselor Xylos stood on the primary observation deck of his flagship, the immutable Logic. Before him, the Sol system hung like a delicate jewel on black velvet. He observed the third planet, the blue and white marble the humans called Earth, with his ship's deepest sensors. He expected to find a world in chaos, its primitive communication networks screaming with panic, its populations in disarray. Instead, he found quiet, a calm, ordered, and unnervingly focused response. There were no panic broadcasts, no military forces scrambling in a frenzy. There was only a profound, collective stillness, as if an entire species were holding its breath. It was the calm of a predator, not of prey. "They do not posture," came the soft, chiming thought of Emissary Lyra, who stood beside him as a shimmering column of light. "They do not signal fear or aggression, they simply watch." "They are paralyzed by terror," Grauk's voice snarled over the command comm, his Vexian flagship a dark, menacing shape against the distant glow of Saturn. "They know their doom has arrived. Let us proceed to orbital insertion and broadcast the ultimatum. Their silence is their consent to surrender." But before Xylos could respond, a new contact appeared on the system display. It was a single vessel emerging from the shadow of the gas giant Jupiter. It was small. In comparison to the Concordium Armada, it was a mote of dust. It was unarmed, the sensors confirmed this with absolute certainty. Its energy signature was negligible. It was, by all measures, utterly insignificant. Yet it moved with a purpose that was anything but. It did not flee. It did not attempt to hide. It moved directly toward the heart of the Concordium fleet, on a perfect, calculated intercept course with the immutable Logic. The design of the human ship was a contradiction. It was sleek, a single, seamless form of a material that seemed to drink the light around it, yet it possessed none of the aggressive angles or weapon emplacements common to military vessels. It looked less like a warship and more like a perfectly sculpted instrument. As it drew closer, it broadcast another message, again in flawless high Concordium. "This is the United Nations Vessel Odyssey. We carry Ambassador Eva Rostova. We request permission to approach and welcome the Concordium delegation." The audacity was breathtaking. Grauk's snarled command to destroy the vessel was instantly countermanded by Xylos. This was a move of profound confidence, a deliberate choice that defied every known model of galactic first contact protocol. One did not send a single, unarmed ship to greet an armada of overwhelming power. It was either an act of supreme foolishness or of something else entirely, something Xylos' logical mind could not yet process. "Permission granted," Xylos transmitted, his own curiosity overriding his ingrained caution. "Maintain your course and velocity. Any deviation will be met with immediate disintegration." The human ship, the Odyssey, complied perfectly, its movements smooth and precise. It came to a stop at the designated position, a respectful distance from the crystalline behemoth of the Cathar flagship. A moment later, a new communication came through, this time a visual feed. The face that appeared on the main view screen of the immutable Logic was both alien and strangely familiar. It was a human female, her features symmetrical, her eyes a deep, startling shade of gray. Her expression was serene, her posture relaxed. There was no trace of fear, no hint of subservience. She was flanked by two other humans, all clad in simple, dark blue uniforms devoid of rank or ornamentation. "High Counselor Xylos," she began, her voice the same one from the earlier broadcast, calm, measured, and resonant with an unreadable authority. "I am Ambassador Eva Rostova. On behalf of a unified humanity, I welcome you to our home. We are aware of your concerns regarding our method of faster-than-light travel. We wish to allay your fears and offer a full explanation. Xylos felt the collective shock of his bridge crew, a silent wave of disbelief. This was not the behavior of a primitive species caught in a transgression. This was the posture of an equal. Ambassador Rostova, Xylos projected, his tone cold and formal. Your explanation is long overdue. Your torsion drive has inflicted damage upon the fabric of this galaxy. You have violated the fundamental principles of cosmic stability that have governed this galaxy for eons. The Concordium does not take such matters lightly. The ambassador nodded slowly, her gray eyes holding Xylos's gaze without flinching. We understand. Your perception of damage is based on the data you possess. That data is incomplete. To facilitate a more thorough understanding, I would like to invite you, High Counselor Xylos, and you, Emissary Lyra, to board our vessel. We have prepared a presentation that we believe you will find illuminating. Another wave of shock, an invitation, from their tiny, insignificant vessel to the leaders of the two most influential factions of the Concordium Council. Grauk's furious protests flooded the command channel, calling it a trap, an insult, a transparent ploy, but Xylos silenced him. A trap made no sense. They could destroy the Odyssey with a thought, an insult, perhaps, but it was delivered with such unnerving calm that it felt like something else. It felt like a necessary step in a process the humans had already mapped out. Why should we board your vessel? Xylos asked, testing her. You can transmit your presentation to us. Ambassador Rostova offered a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Some things must be seen to be understood, Counselor. Some truths require proximity. We guarantee your safety. You have my word and the word of humanity. The concept of a personal word as a guarantee from a species they had just met was, by Concordium standards, ludicrous. Yet there was a weight to her statement, a sincerity that resonated on a level deeper than mere words. Xylos conferred with Lyra in a private, instantaneous exchange of thought. The risk was minimal. The potential for insight was immeasurable. Their curiosity, the driving force of all advanced species, won out over their caution. We accept, Xylos transmitted. Prepare to receive a transport shuttle. Warlord Grauk, you will maintain fleet position and await our signal. If we do not report back within one of your standard hours, you have my authority to sterilize this entire system. Grauk's chitter of assent was grimly satisfied. The threat had been made. The consequences were clear. A small, elegant Cathar shuttle detached from the immutable logic and glided toward the human ship. As Xylos and Lyra, in a shimmering transport bubble, crossed the short distance between the two vessels, Xylos felt the profound dissonance of the situation grow. He was the representative of a galactic superpower, aboard a vessel that could crack planets, about to board a ship that was little more than a speck. And yet, he felt as if he were the one being summoned to an audience. The interior of the Odyssey was another shock. The airlock opened not onto a cramped corridor or a military bridge, but into a vast open space. The lighting was soft, indirect, emanating from the walls themselves. The air was clean with a faint, pleasant scent of ozone and growing things. There were no soldiers, no guards with weapons drawn. There were only humans, dressed in the same simple blue uniforms, moving with quiet purpose. They were scientists, engineers, academics. They paused their work to watch the alien dignitaries enter, their expressions not of fear or hostility, but of intense, professional curiosity. It was the atmosphere of a university, not a warship. Ambassador Rostova was waiting for them. Welcome aboard the Odyssey, she said, her voice just as calm in person. This is not a military vessel, counselors. It is a laboratory, an observatory. It is humanity's first testament to a new philosophy. She led them through the great chamber toward a central platform. Below them, Xylos could see humans working at consoles that displayed impossibly complex equations and stellar models. Please, Rostova gestured to the platform. Allow us to begin. As Xylos and Lyra took their positions, the chamber's lights dimmed. A holographic display, far more detailed and precise than the one in the Ethelgard sanctum, materialized around them. It showed the galaxy, and on it the angry red scars left by the human torsion drive. You see these as wounds, Rostova began, her voice echoing softly in the chamber. You see them as evidence of a violent, reckless technology that harms the universe. You are not wrong in what you see. You are only wrong in your interpretation of it. The hologram zoomed in on one of the scars, the image resolving to a quantum level, showing the churning, chaotic energies of torn spacetime. Your harmonic drives are elegant, she continued. They slip through the microfolds of the universe, following paths of least resistance. It is a brilliant, passive method of travel, but it is based on a flawed premise that the universe is fundamentally stable. The display shifted, showing the galaxy not as a static map, but as a living, breathing entity over billions of years. A faint, almost imperceptible network of tiny, dark lines began to appear throughout the starscape like cracks in cooling glass. The universe is not stable. It is slowly, inexorably dying, not of heat death, not of entropy in the way you understand it. It is fraying. There are natural, microscopic tears in the fabric of reality, a constant, low-level quantum decoherence. A cosmic decay. Xylos felt a resonant tremor run through his crystalline structure. The Cathar's deepest, most classified astrophysical models had hinted at such a phenomenon, but it was considered a fringe theory, a statistical ghost. Your own FTL travel, Rostova said, her voice heavy with gravity, by following the natural folds slightly exacerbates these tears. Over millions of years, your safe travel method is accelerating the universal decay. You are not sailing on a calm ocean. You are walking on thinning ice, unaware of the abyss beneath. The display changed again. It now showed the signature of a human torsion drive activation in agonizing slow motion. A human ship appeared, and then reality seemed to shatter around it. A violent, shrieking vortex of energy erupted. It was exactly as horrifying as the Concordium's sensors had indicated. Our drive is not passive, Rostova explained. It is active. It does not seek the path of least resistance. It creates its own. The simulation showed the ship vanishing into the vortex. But then something incredible happened. As the vortex collapsed, the energy did not simply dissipate. It folded back in on itself, drawing the chaotic energies of the tier together. It pulled in the surrounding microfractures, the faint lines of cosmic decay. The violent energy then imploded, and where the shrieking vortex had been, there was now calm. The space-time in that area was smoother, stronger, more coherent than the space around it. You see a scar, Ambassador Rostova said, her voice barely a whisper. We call it a suture. Our torsion drive is not a weapon that harms the universe. It is a surgical instrument. Each jump is a targeted procedure. We do not just travel from one point to another. We identify a region of significant cosmic decay, a place where space-time is weak, and we execute a jump through it. The energy of the dimensional shear is harnessed by the drive's collapse field to cauterize the wound. We are not tearing reality, we are mending it. The revelation was so profound, so completely contrary to everything they believed, that it defied immediate comprehension. Xylos stared at the holographic display, which now showed the scar not as a wound, but as a patch of healed, reinforced reality. The ugly, twisted knot of energy was, in fact, a zone of profound stability. You are healing the universe. Emissary Lyra's thought was a ripple of pure astonishment. You're trying, Rostova replied. When we first achieved spaceflight, we looked out at the stars with ambition, but we also looked back at our own world. We had poisoned our skies, boiled our oceans, and scarred our land. We learned a terrible lesson. You cannot build a lasting future on a foundation that is crumbling beneath your feet. When our quantum physicists discovered the universal decay, we made a choice as a species. We would not expand into the galaxy until we could do so responsibly. We would not simply use the universe, we would become its custodians. It took us 2 centuries of unified, concentrated effort, but we developed the torsion drive. It is violent, it is energetic, it is dangerous, but it is not destructive, it is restorative. She turned to face them, her gray eyes filled not with pride, but with a deep, weary sense of responsibility. We knew you would detect our drive's signature. We knew you would interpret it as an act of aggression. We made the jump near your trade nexus as a way to invite this conversation, to bring you here so we could show you the truth, before your fear led to an action that we would all regret. Xylos was silent. His logical mind was racing, reevaluating every piece of data, every assumption, every prejudice. The Cathar had spent millennia perfecting a way to travel without leaving a trace, believing it was the height of enlightened science. The humans, in a fraction of that time, had devised a way to travel that left the universe better than they had found it. The sheer, staggering ethical leap was almost too vast to process. They had not been reckless children. They had been cosmic surgeons, and the Concordium in its ancient arrogance had mistaken their scalpel for a dagger. The fleet he had brought to their doorstep, a symbol of power and intimidation, now felt like a monument to ignorance. The ultimatum he had been prepared to deliver now seemed like the barbarism of a primitive threatening a physician for setting a broken bone. The balance of power in the galaxy had not just shifted, it had been inverted. The journey back to the immutable logic was conducted in a silence so profound it felt like a physical presence. High Counselor Xylos did not process data. He experienced a cascade of systemic reevaluation. The human revelation had not just presented new facts. It had shattered the very axioms upon which the Concordium's perception of the universe was built. Emissary Lyra, a being of energy, was a subdued, flickering light, her usual serene radiance dimmed by the weight of what they had learned. They had arrived as judges, ready to pass sentence on a young, reckless species. They were returning as acolytes who had just been shown a truth so fundamental it had redefined the meaning of existence. Upon their return to the flagship's bridge, Warlord Grauk's impatient snarl filled the calm. "Report! Did the primitives confess their treachery? Have you delivered the ultimatum?" Xylos took a long moment before responding, his crystalline mind composing a reply that would not incite the Vexian to immediate, catastrophic action. "Warlord Grauk," he projected, his tone measured and devoid of its earlier certainty. "The situation is more complex than we anticipated. The humans are not our enemies. Their technology is not a weapon." "Not a weapon?" Grauk's voice was a furious buzz of incredulity. "It tears holes in reality. What else could it be?" "It is a tool of mending," Lyra's soft thought interjected, her strength seeming to return. "They are not wounding the galaxy, Warlord. They are healing it from a decay we were too blind to see." Xylos knew that a simple explanation would be dismissed by Grauk as a human trick. He needed to present the truth in a way that even the Vexian's militaristic mind could not refute. He ordered all the data from the Odyssey, the simulations, the quantum field readings, the long-term projections of universal decay, to be broadcast directly to the command decks of every ship in the Armada. He did not add commentary or interpretation. He simply presented the raw, undeniable evidence. For several long minutes, the only sound on the bridge of the immutable logic was the soft hum of its core systems. Across the fleet, thousands of the Concordium's finest scientific and military minds were processing the human data. Xylos could feel the waves of disbelief, followed by frantic cross-verification, as they checked the human findings against their own sensor logs. The scars were realigned in their tactical displays, their threat indicators flipping from a violent red to a serene, stable green. The truth, once seen, was irrefutable. Grauk's next transmission was uncharacteristically subdued. The fury was gone, replaced by a deep, guttural confusion. "This cannot be. They are repairing." "They are, Warlord," Xylos confirmed. "They perceived a fundamental problem with the universe and solved it, a problem we did not even have the wisdom to fully acknowledge." Before Grauk could formulate a new argument, a new message arrived from the Odyssey. It was Ambassador Rostova. "High Counselor Xylos," her calm voice filled the bridge. "We hope our demonstration was satisfactory. We do not wish for conflict. We see you not as a threat, but as fellow inhabitants of a universe that requires stewardship. Therefore, humanity offers to share the principles and engineering of the torsion drive with all member species of the Concordium. We offer it freely without condition or demand for tribute. It is not our technology to hoard. It belongs to the universe and to all who wish to see it preserved." This final act was the one that broke the last vestiges of Concordium arrogance. It was a gesture of such profound and unexpected magnanimity that it transcended politics. They were not just offering a technology. They were offering a new philosophy, a new galactic compact based on shared responsibility. To refuse such a gift would be an act of galactic suicide. To continue to treat humanity as a threat would be to declare oneself an enemy of reality itself. Xylos opened a channel to the Ethelgard sanctum, relaying everything he had seen, heard, and received. He formally withdrew his proposal for an ultimatum and instead put forth a new one, a motion to invite humanity to join the Concordium, not as a junior member, but as a guiding voice, a species whose perspective was desperately needed. The vote in the sanctum, conducted via instantaneous light-speed communication, was nearly unanimous. Even the Vexian ascendancy, faced with the irrefutable data and the offer of a technology that could strengthen their own territories against cosmic decay, cast their vote in favor. Warlord Grauk, for the first time in his tenure, was silent. An era of transformation began. The great armada that had come to Sol to deliver a threat now stayed to begin a dialogue. Human engineers and scientists were welcomed aboard Concordium vessels, and in turn, the greatest minds of the galaxy were invited to Earth and its orbital facilities. The integration was not without its difficulties. The sheer difference in philosophy was a chasm that had to be bridged. The Concordium species had always seen themselves as masters of the universe, shaping it to their will. The humans saw themselves as its caretakers, subservient to its health. Xylos and Ambassador Rostova found themselves in frequent conference, standing together on the observation deck of the Odyssey, which had become a neutral ground for the nascent alliance. They watched as Cathar crystalline vessels and human ships worked in tandem, conducting joint mending jumps, the violent beauty of the torsion drive becoming a symbol of this new, shared purpose. Your people have a capacity for foresight, that is. Humbling, Xylos admitted one day, watching a Vexian cruiser retrofitted with a prototype human drive perform a perfect spacetime suture. You saw a flaw in the grand design and took it upon yourselves to correct it. My own people, for all our logic, would have simply calculated the inevitable end and stoically accepted it. We have had practice with inevitability, Rostova replied, her gaze distant. We have faced it many times on our own world. We learned that inevitable is often just a failure of imagination, but our work is not done. The decay, while natural, is more aggressive in some sectors than our models predict. There are anomalies we still do not understand. It was during one of these collaborative sessions, weeks later, that the final, most profound piece of the puzzle fell into place. The Odyssey, its long-range sensors now boosted by Cathar focusing crystal technology and Luminian's psionic amplifiers, was conducting a deep scan of a particularly decayed region on the galactic fringe. The enhanced sensitivity of their combined systems, operating within the quiet of a freshly sutured patch of spacetime, allowed them to perceive things with a clarity never before possible. An analyst on the Odyssey's bridge, a young human with eyes wide with disbelief, called out, "Ambassador, Counselor, you need to see this." On the main screen, a stream of data appeared. It was faint, buried deep beneath the background radiation of the cosmos, but it was unmistakably artificial. It was a signal, patterned, complex, and impossibly ancient. It did not originate from within their galaxy. Its point of origin was extragalactic, a place of utter, featureless void between galactic clusters. "What is it?" Rostova asked, her voice tight. "We are not certain," the analyst replied, her hands flying over her console. "The structure is a warning, a beacon, but the message itself is, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a repeating mathematical proof of a concept." Xylos focused his own senses on the data stream, his crystalline mind uniquely suited to deciphering complex mathematical languages. As he absorbed the information, a coldness far deeper than the vacuum of space settled into his core. The blood-red scars of the torsion drive had been a misinterpretation. The universal decay had been a miscalculation. But this was a truth that could not be misread. "Ambassador," Xylos projected, his thoughts so grave it seemed to dim the lights on the bridge. "The decay, the fraying of spacetime we have been fighting, it is not a natural process." Rostova turned to him, her calm exterior finally cracking, a flicker of true alarm in her gray eyes. "What do you mean?" "This signal," Xylos explained, the pieces clicking into place with horrifying precision. "It is a record, a memorial, from a civilization that no longer exists. They are describing the source of the decay. It is not entropy. It is consumption, a byproduct." The bridge fell into a stunned silence. "A byproduct of what?" the human analyst whispered. Xylos turned his gaze from the data screen to the grand holographic map of their galaxy, and then to the immense, dark void beyond it. The fear he had felt in the Ethelgard sanctum, the awe he had felt aboard the Odyssey, all of it paled in comparison to the utter, soul-crushing dread of this final revelation. The greatest minds of the Concordium and the fierce, brilliant upstarts of humanity had united to fix what they thought was a flaw in the universe. They had been patting themselves on the back for repairing a crack in the wall of their home, never once suspecting the reason for the damage. "It is the exhaust," Xylos said, the words falling like shards of glass into the silence. "The waste energy of something on an inconceivable scale, operating in the spaces between galaxies. Something that is feeding on the very structure of reality itself." The warning was not about the decay. The decay was just a symptom. The warning was about the disease. Humanity had not invented a dangerous FTL drive. They had, in their quest to heal the universe, inadvertently created the one instrument capable of detecting the thing that was slowly, methodically, and purposefully unmaking it. They had answered a question no one had known to ask, and the answer was a revelation far more terrifying than any war or political conflict. They were not alone. And what was out there in the great and terrible dark was hungry. The urgent meeting of the High Council had been called for the wrong reason entirely. The real crisis was only just beginning.